This American influencer wants to be famous, but now he's probably going to prison. So this turd, his name is Johnny Somali. Well, that's not his actual name. His real name is Ramsey.
It's hard to imagine someone deliberately traveling across the world to insult and provoke strangers. But that's exactly the reputation Ramsey Khalid Ismael, better known by his infamous online moniker Johnny Somali, has carved out for himself. From the moment he set foot in South Korea, the controversial live streamer seemed hell-bent on stirring up as much outrage as possible. And boy, did he succeed. But now, with legal walls closing in and public fury reaching a boiling point, it seems the self-proclaimed provocateur may have finally pushed too far.
A kick streamer is facing 20 years in a South Korean prison after filming himself harassing women, trashing businesses, and disrespecting war monuments.
Let's rewind to how this all started. Johnny Somali is no stranger to controversy. His entire online persona thrives on baiting outrage for clicks, views, and donations. He's built his career on a toxic cocktail of offensive antics, cultural insensitivity, and outright harassment. Before landing in South Korea, he left a trail of chaos in Japan, where his behavior included mocking locals with tasteless jokes about historical tragedies. His actions there eventually got him arrested and deported, earning him a 5-year ban from entering Japan again. You'd think such consequences would serve as a wake-up call, but for Somali, it seemed to only embolden him. His next stop was South Korea, where things quickly spiraled out of control.
Of course, he was also a victim of many assault cases, but at the same time, he will face many prosecutions in Korea, of course, which will end up mostly in fine, of course. Anyway, yeah, he will face many punishment, many guilty sentences in Korea.
The trouble began almost immediately upon his arrival in September 2024. Somali wasted no time making his presence known, and not in a good way. One of his first stunts was at a convenience store, where he made a spectacle of himself by pouring food onto a table in a bizarre act of defiance after being told he couldn't do as he pleased. From there, he escalated his antics, broadcasting inappropriate noises in public places, harassing commuters, and antagonizing anyone unlucky enough to cross his path. But his most infamous act, and the one that truly set the country ablaze with anger, came on October 9 when he targeted one of South Korea's most significant cultural symbols, the Statue of Peace.
I have some updates on Johnny Somali. His real name is Ramsey Khalid Ismael. He is currently banned from leaving.
For context, the Statue of Peace represents an incredibly sensitive and painful chapter in Korean history. It honors the memory of women who endured unimaginable suffering during the Japanese occupation. This statue is a powerful symbol of resilience, remembrance, and justice, and it holds deep emotional weight for Korean people. To desecrate it is to disrespect not just the monument itself, but the very history and pain it represents. Of course, Somali saw it as the perfect stage for one of his tasteless stunts. In a live stream that quickly went viral for all the wrong reasons, Somali filmed himself touching and kissing the statue in an exaggerated, mocking manner. If that wasn't bad enough, he printed out a photo of his performance and flaunted it to people nearby, as if daring them to confront him. As expected, the backlash was immediate. Koreans, both online and offline, were outraged, with many calling for his arrest and deportation. But rather than apologize or back down, Somali doubled down on his actions. He returned to the statue days later, this time dancing inappropriately around it while making sarcastic comments about its significance. It was clear he wasn't just clueless, he was actively trying to provoke.
What is your opinion on all the stuff that is happening with Johnny Somali in Korea? Yeah, once he finished with the police investigation, he will be deported, and what he did was horrible.
The public fury reached a fever pitch. Social media lit up with calls for accountability, with hashtags demanding justice trending across platforms. Videos of Somali's antics circulated widely, with comments pouring in from people around the world condemning his behavior. Koreans, in particular, were understandably furious, viewing his actions as a direct attack on their national pride and history. One commenter summed up the sentiment perfectly. Why do we even call him Somali? He's tarnishing the name of an entire country. Just call him by his real name, Ramsey Ismael. He doesn't deserve the recognition of being a content creator. Things took an even darker turn when Somali's behavior began attracting real-world consequences. On October 24, during yet another live stream, he was approached by a local man who clearly had had enough. The man struck Somali in the face before walking away, leaving Somali visibly shaken. Just 3 days later, on October 27, a similar incident occurred, with another individual physically confronting him during a broadcast. While violence is never the answer, these incidents highlighted just how deeply Somali's actions had infuriated the public. Some Koreans even began joking online about forming a Johnny Somali resistance movement, with one particularly motivated YouTuber reportedly offering a bounty for information on his whereabouts.
tactic. Anyway, Johnny Somali was arrested partially for his own safety because after days of him streaming himself being incredibly rude and disruptive in South Korea, there were literally hundreds of Asian people on the street all hunting down a black guy to sucker punch.
But Somali's troubles weren't confined to public altercations. His antics quickly attracted the attention of South Korean authorities, who launched a formal investigation into his behavior. By late October, he was hit with his first official charge, obstruction of business. The charge stemmed from the convenience store incident where his disruptive behavior had caused employees to temporarily shut down operations. However, this was just the beginning. Police soon began looking into other allegations, including creating inappropriate content, using artificial intelligence, and engaging in activities that could violate the country's strict security laws. His repeated public displays of offensive behavior, combined with his growing legal troubles, led to a government-issued travel ban, effectively trapping him in South Korea while the investigations continued. What makes Somali's case particularly unique is the sheer breadth of his offenses. It's not just one isolated incident or a misunderstanding. It's a pattern of behavior that has offended and alienated people across multiple countries. In Japan, he mocked one of the darkest chapters of their history. In South Korea, he insulted a monument that symbolizes resilience in the face of unimaginable suffering. And in both nations, he harassed and demeaned locals, all in the name of content. It's the kind of behavior that begs the question, where do we draw the line between free expression and outright disrespect?
So he was living in Japan for a while, and one night he gets drunk and he live streams himself putting on a fake Asian accent, and he starts saying racist things on the subway.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we destroy it because you don't know how to behave. You know Hiroshima and Nagasaki? We're gonna do it again.
Adding to the complexity of the situation is Somali's apparent lack of remorse. While he has issued a half-hearted apology, many have questioned its sincerity. In a video uploaded to social media, Somali claimed he didn't understand the significance of the statue and that his actions were meant to entertain his audience back in the United States. He even went so far as to suggest that the backlash could serve as a learning experience for him and his viewers. "I'm just a young guy who made a mistake," he said, attempting to paint himself as naive rather than malicious. However, his actions following the apology, such as leaving inflammatory posts on his social media accounts, suggest otherwise. For example, not long after his apology, Somali posted an image of himself holding a photo of a prominent Japanese politician with a caption that appeared to mock Koreans. Although he later deleted the post, the damage was done. Viewers were quick to point out the hypocrisy, with one person commenting if he really wanted to apologize, he wouldn't still be posting this kind of stuff. He's just trying to save face because he knows he's in trouble.
皆さん、この度は、お騒がせして、二度と、今後、二度と、このような行為は、このような迷惑行為は、絶対にしません。皆さん、申し訳ありませんでした。
The situation has also sparked a broader conversation about the role of social media platforms in enabling and amplifying harmful behavior. Somali's live streams, which often feature him baiting people for reactions, are a prime example of how toxic content can thrive in the digital age. Many have called for stricter moderation on platforms like Rumble, where Somali continues to post, arguing that such content not only promotes harmful behavior but also normalizes disrespect and harassment. It's not just him that should be held accountable. One commenter wrote, "Everyone who enables him and profits off his content should face consequences too." As Somali awaits his first court hearing in December, the stakes couldn't be higher. The obstruction of business charge alone carry a maximum sentence of 5 years, but with additional charges reportedly in the works, that number could climb significantly. And while Somali has expressed confidence that he'll eventually return to the United States, legal experts are less optimistic. One lawyer following the case noted that South Korean prosecutors have an impressive track record, with a 90% success rate for cases involving similar charges. If Somali is found guilty, he could be looking at a lengthy prison sentence and a permanent stain on his already tarnished reputation.
My guess is police have been looking for an excuse to bring him down for a long time. And finally, he did something.
What's particularly striking about Somali's story is how avoidable all of this was. At any point, he could have chosen to change course, apologize sincerely, stop the provocations, and focus on creating content that doesn't rely on offending others. Instead, he doubled down, daring the public and authorities to hold him accountable. Now, with the full weight of the legal system bearing down on him, it seems his days of carefree trolling may finally be over. But whether he'll learn from this experience or simply move on to his next target remains to be seen. It's hard to imagine how someone could make their situation worse after alienating an entire country, but Johnny Somali managed to do just that. As his legal troubles in South Korea snowballed, the controversial streamer continued to dig himself an even deeper hole, attracting attention from prominent figures, sparking public outrage, and even inspiring bizarre vigilante actions. What started as a series of provocative stunts turned into an international spectacle, with Somali becoming a symbol of everything wrong with the attention-hungry culture of modern influencers. Let's dive into how the fallout from his antics escalated to involve not just the public and legal authorities, but also South Korea's YouTube community and government officials.
Incredibly good at getting out of things. For example, somehow he was able to leave Israel a free man after he was arrested for sexually harassing a military police officer.
For starters, Somali's situation took a dramatic turn when a prominent South Korean YouTuber decided to take matters into their own hands. Frustrated by Somali's audacious behavior and the seemingly slow pace of justice, the YouTuber reportedly offered a bounty for information about Somali's whereabouts. According to online chatter, this wasn't just a casual suggestion. There were rumors of a reward amounting to 1 million won, which is roughly the equivalent of 770 United States dollars. This bounty quickly sparked a frenzy among local creators and fans alike, with some even live streaming their attempts to track Somali down. While the legality of such a move was questioned by some, others applauded the effort, seeing it as a way to hold Somali accountable for his actions. One fan commented online, "I don't know if this is legal, but it's about time someone stood up to him. He deserves every bit of this." This wasn't just an isolated effort either. The bounty seemed to trigger a wave of community-driven action as other influencers and ordinary citizens began reporting sightings of Somali in public spaces. Videos and photos of him walking the streets of Seoul quickly circulated online, with people tagging local authorities and urging them to act. It was almost as if Somali had become a public enemy, with many feeling personally invested in his downfall. While some critics argued that this kind of vigilante justice was excessive, others saw it as a natural consequence of Somali's blatant disregard for cultural norms and laws. "If you act like this in someone else's country, what do you expect?" another commenter wrote. "People are going to push back."
Facing multiple felony charges for disturbing the statue of peace for assault, trespassing, and drug use. If convicted, they're saying that he can face a prison sentence of 10 years.
Amid this public hunt, Somali's legal troubles continued to mount. South Korean prosecutors were not just focusing on his initial obstruction of business charge, they were also investigating a slew of other allegations. One of the most talked about accusations involved Somali allegedly playing music associated with North Korea in public settings. In South Korea, where tensions with the North remain high, this is not taken lightly. The country's National Security Act strictly prohibits the promotion or dissemination of anything that could be considered propaganda for the North. While Somali's defenders claimed he was just trying to provoke a reaction, legal experts argued that such behavior could carry severe consequences, including years in prison. One lawyer familiar with the case explained, even if he wasn't serious, the repeated nature of these actions could make it hard for him to argue that it was all just a joke. The prosecutors will likely take this very seriously. As if that wasn't enough, Somali also faced accusations of creating and distributing inappropriate digital content, which reportedly included manipulated images of a well-known South Korean streamer. These allegations only added fuel to the fire, with many calling for harsher penalties to deter other influencers from following in his footsteps. By this point, it was clear that Somali was no longer just a controversial internet figure. He had become a cautionary tale, a symbol of what can happen when someone pushes the boundaries of acceptable behavior too far in a foreign country.
Of course, his each actions and each videos that he took and each of his contents are full of crimes, of course. Yeah, literally, he will be punished for misdemeanor, defamation, harassment, insults.
Interestingly, this saga didn't just remain within the realm of public opinion and the legal system. It even reached the halls of South Korea's parliament. During an October 30 session, lawmakers discussed Somali's actions, with several officials condemning his behavior and calling for stricter measures to deal with disruptive foreigners. Some even proposed new legislation aimed specifically at preventing incidents like this in the future. This level of attention from government officials underscored just how much of an impact Somali's actions had on the country. It wasn't every day that a foreign internet personality became the subject of parliamentary debate, but Somali's antics had struck a nerve, and people wanted to ensure that such behavior wouldn't be tolerated again. Meanwhile, Somali's public image continued to deteriorate. His attempt at an apology, a video where he claimed ignorance about the cultural significance of the Statue of Peace, was widely criticized as insincere. In the video, Somali appeared visibly uncomfortable as he read what seemed to be a prepared statement. He admitted that his actions were inappropriate and expressed regret, but many viewers weren't buying it. "He's only apologizing because he got caught," one person commented. "If he was really sorry, he wouldn't have done it in the first place." Others pointed out that the apology came far too late, after weeks of doubling down on his behavior and mocking those who criticized him.
申し訳ありませんでした。
申し訳ありませんでした。
Adding to the skepticism was Somali's continued activity on social media. Despite promising to reflect on his actions, he couldn't seem to resist stirring the pot. In one now-deleted post, he shared an image of himself holding a photo of a controversial Japanese politician, captioned with a message that many interpreted as a jab at Koreans, though he later edited the caption and eventually removed the post altogether. The damage was already done. Screenshots of the post circulated widely, further cementing the perception that Somali wasn't truly remorseful. One commenter summed it up perfectly. Apologies mean nothing when your actions keep saying the opposite. These mixed signals only fueled calls for Somali to face the full force of the law. Legal experts weighed in, with some predicting that his case could drag on for months, if not years. This wasn't just because of the complexity of the allegations, but also because of the sheer volume of evidence against him. Between the live streams, social media posts, and eyewitness accounts, there was no shortage of material for prosecutors to work with. And with Somali already having a reputation as a troublemaker in other countries, it seemed likely that South Korean authorities would want to make an example out of him.
His visa will be cancelled, but the real problem is that his misbehavior it led to a lot of prejudice and biased views to American or black Americans.
At the same time, the financial toll of his actions began to mount. Legal representation in South Korea isn't cheap, and Somali's decision to request a public defender suggested that he might be struggling to cover the costs. One lawyer estimated that hiring a private attorney for a case like this could easily run into six figures, especially with multiple charges on the table. This financial strain was compounded by the fact that Somali was unable to leave the country or continue his usual live streaming activities, cutting off his primary source of income. For someone who had built an entire career around creating chaos for clicks, being forced to sit still and wait for a trial must have been its own form of punishment.
Do you remember Johnny Somali? It's okay if you don't. He's a controversial streamer that has made a lot of waves this past year for being disrespectful and terrorizing people on his live streams. A while back, he went viral for obnoxious and racist tirades against Japanese people on the train while referencing events like Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki and saying, "We'll do it again."
Of course, not everyone was sympathetic to Somali's plight. Many argued that he had brought this upon himself and that his financial difficulties were just another consequence of his reckless behavior. He thought he could get away with anything because he's popular online, one person commented. Well, now he's learning the hard way that real life doesn't work like that. Others, however, took a more critical view of the system that allowed Somali to thrive in the first place. It's not just him that should be held accountable, another commenter wrote. Everyone who rolls with him should share in the spoils of their actions. As Somali's situation continued to unfold, the broader implications of his actions became a hot topic of discussion. Some saw him as a symptom of a larger problem, the rise of influencers who prioritize shock value over substance, often at the expense of others. Somali wasn't the first to use controversy as a stepping stone to fame, but his case highlighted just how far some are willing to go for attention. It also raised questions about the responsibility of social media platforms in curbing harmful behavior. While Somali had been banned from several platforms in the past, he always seemed to find a new one willing to host his content. This cycle of bans and comebacks only emboldened him, creating a sense of invincibility that ultimately led to his downfall.
Johnny Somali is frequently getting arrested in foreign countries for his on-stream behavior, but they always let him go. With the amount of sentences this guy's avoided,
As the dust settled, one thing became clear. Somali's story was far from over. With his first court hearing scheduled for December, the world would be watching to see how his case unfolded. Would he face a lengthy prison sentence, or would he find a way to escape serious consequences yet again? And perhaps more importantly, what lessons, if any, would he take away from this experience? For now, Somali remained confident that he would eventually return to the United States and resume his streaming career. But with public opinion firmly against him and legal experts predicting a tough battle ahead, it seemed more likely that his days of carefree trolling were coming to an end. Only time would tell whether this chapter of his life would serve as a turning point, or just another scandal in a career defined by controversy. So, what do you think? Is Johnny Somali simply a misguided provocateur who underestimated the consequences of his actions? Or is he a prime example of the dangers of influencers who thrive on controversies? Should platforms bear more responsibility for enabling figures like him? Or is this entirely on Somali himself? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and stay curious.